Hello friends, welcome back to the Tumble Creatures YouTube channel. Today's video... Oh, hello. Kazi says hello. Come here, come see! This is Cosmo. He's our 4-year-old giant schnauzer. He, every time I turn the camera on, he wants to be in the picture too. He's such a good boy and we just love him so much. So, okay. Hello, Cosmo. Today's video is a fun one because it has been several months in the making. I have been working for almost a year. I finished these a few weeks ago. These are hand-painted Tumble ponies, which I don't offer very often. I did put 3 exclusive ones as a mystery made-to-order in my shop last year for my birthday because I like to put sculptures that I really want to make in my shop on my birthday, Crystal's favorite. So that's what I had in there. I just finally finished them. So this video is just some shots of them in progress, and I'm gonna do a voiceover to tell you sort of how I conceptualized them and some tips and just sort of how I made them. So this is just me after they've all finished, after they have all shipped out, coming here to introduce you to the video, and thank you so much for stopping by. If you love Tumble Creatures, please feel free to subscribe to this channel and follow along on all my social medias, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. I also will be having a shop update soon. Actually, I will be having a shop update April, hold on, April 14th at 4 p.m. MST, so if you're interested in Tumble Creatures, check the shop out. The link will be down below in the description. Thank you once again. Now let's get into the video, the content, and let's talk about these hand-painted Tumble ponies. So one of the first things that I did when I thought about making these hand-painted ponies was, what's the sculpture going to look like? How am I going to make a sculpture that is very obviously a Tumble Creature pony, but is also going to make for enough canvas to paint something? My idea with all of these was to make them like traditionally patterned horses. So I thought, you know, one of these is going to be a realistic colored pony, so like one of them is going to end up being like a Buttermilk buckskin Appaloosa, and the other 2 are fantastical colors, and I wanted both of the fantastical colors to be pinto of some sort. And I knew that if I was going to be able to have the colors really shine, there couldn't be too much white, but just enough in the spots of the pinto pattern or the Appaloosa pattern to really create a beautiful backdrop for the colors. And I wanted to have a lot of fades and a lot of blends when I painted these ponies. I wanted them to really stand out and be unique and different than what I typically do with the colored polymer clay. I loved the process of sculpting these ponies because I could do basically whatever I wanted to them and not have to worry about the colored clay either getting dirty or blending from one color into another. And that was so freeing, and I think that I did something that I was really happy with, in that I created ponies that looked like a little bit elevated than a typical Tumble pony, which was the idea because, you know, these were something that was going to be very unique, something special, something that in years past I probably would have auctioned. So at this point, these are fully sculpted. I sculpted them in Super Sculpey, the firm, and then I have primed them and sanded them, and then I'm going to end up having to prime them again because when I sanded off some of it, I ended up taking some of the primer off, and I need that primer on there to be a good base to get a really beautiful, clean, smooth paint job on all of these ponies. And not only are they going to be cute, adorable, heartwarming Tumble ponies, but I want the paint job to really look fantastic too. So this one, well, actually all of them, I wanted to have like big dark eyes, little upturned noses, side-swept forelock, you know, those traditional aspects of Tumble ponies that you see in pretty much every pony that I make. But I wanted them to be a beautiful canvas for the paintwork. So the next step that I did after I'd primed them, sanded them and everything, is I went into each pony and I drew on them with a white colored pencil the white markings that I wanted. So this was just an idea, sort of like a map. So when I put the paint on them, I would know where I wanted the color to be and where I wanted the white markings to be. So this is going to be one of the pinto ponies. This one's going to be sort of like an Overo pattern where we're not going to have white cross over the spine or, you know, under the belly or on the chest. And this is another one that's going to be one of the pinto ponies. So both of these are going to be pinto ponies that will be fantastical colors. And I've already got a plan for one of them to be rainbow and then the other one is going to be like a really cool color scheme with teals and purples and things like that. So at this point, I'm still sort of planning. I'm doing a lot of planning in my head and not as much execution because I'm trying to make sure I've got a really good plan in my head before I get started painting these ponies. I want to know exactly what colors are going where. I want to know where I'm going to have them blended. The best thing that I have learned from being a painter, if you didn't know, I started out my art career as a watercolor painter, and that really taught me how to plan for each layer of paint. And I think that being a watercolor painter has really affected the way that I paint sculptures because I do it, which is typical for how I paint with watercolors. I start with thin layers of color, gradually building them up over time to get something that is really bright and beautiful. So now that I have the white markings mapped out, I went ahead and started painting the white markings on. I wanted to have that white layer down first so that it would only need touch-ups at the end once I had finished putting the colored part on all of these ponies. This one is definitely going to be obviously one of the rainbow colored ones. And this one actually ends up being the rainbow pinto one. I had initially thought I was going to put some white stripes in the mane and tail, but once I started adding the color, I very quickly saw that that was definitely not a great idea and it wasn't going to work. See, I did the same thing here. This one's going to be a realistic Appaloosa, a blanket Appaloosa, with a lot of beautiful markings with rough edges and contrast in colors, and I actually really, really love the color pattern on this pony. It's probably one of my favorite realistic ponies that I've ever done. I love the little upturned nose and the pink spots that I put on later, which you haven't seen yet, but you will. So here they are, all of them ready with their white markings. And then the next step, the most exciting, is to add the color. So now I'm going to show you the brushes that I use. Like I said, I was a watercolor artist, so I still paint in watercolors, but definitely not as frequently. So the brushes that I use acrylic paint when I paint these tumbles, but the brushes that I use are watercolor brushes that I have used for years to paint watercolors. I like a number 4, a number 2, and then an 18/0. I actually prefer the number 4 for all of the paintwork. I think that if you get a really good quality paintbrush, that's going to make your paintwork go so much more smoothly. And I like the number 4 because it holds, for, me, like I come from a watercolor background, it holds enough of that thin wash of paint, which is basically just paint watered down, that I can still use the tip of it to get good, good fine detail I can get in there. It's not like I've got a blunt brush, and that's what I love to use, those brushes. They just work fantastically and they're my favorite. Okay, so now I know I have skipped a lot of steps. You're probably wondering, like, whoa, you went from just the white spots to now you have a finished pony and a couple that are not quite finished. So at this point, I had finished the realistic colored one first. This is my beloved little Buttermilk buckskin. I think that he turned out so freaking adorable. I love the dark eyeliner, the pink nose. I did look up a lot of reference photos for buckskin Appaloosas, and I noticed that in some of them, a lot of them had darker spots on their blanket. So I decided to use that. I thought that was going to be a really good contrast with the creamy buttermilk buckskin color. And even though I had initially planned to have big white sections of the mane and tail, I kind of wanted to try and make it a little bit more unique and different rather than something that I would be able to get with colored clay. So that's why I have a little bit of striping in the mane and tail and a little bit of fading in certain areas. I really want these pieces, I wanted these pieces to be something very unique that the collectors would be so happy to have, that, they had to wait a long time. It was definitely more expensive than something that I typically sell, and I wanted them to really have something special that they could treasure. So I tried to think of different ways that I could make them really stand out as hand-painted rather than with colored clay. And some of that was by putting little tiny details in, but a lot of it was also by blending colors. One of the only ways you can get a really great color blend effect with polymer clay, colored polymer clay, is if you do a Skinner blend, which is difficult. I'll have to do a video on that in the future. So, okay, now we're on to the second pony, which I finished, and this is such a beautiful color scheme. This one was the color scheme at the customer's request. Even though I said they were mystery, I did say, if there are colors you really don't want in these ponies, please let me know, because I don't want my customers to get something they don't want. I love that they have trusted me and that they want something really unique and mysterious that they're not going to know about, that comes from my artist mind. But I don't want to put a color in there if they really really don't like it. So this customer said that she really loved these colors together and she didn't want anything that was red or sunset colors. So I decided to go with teal, blue, indigo, purple, and I just think it turned out so beautifully. There are some sections, like I'm going to show you here, in the leg and the flank and the mane and tail, where it really fades from that teal to the indigo to the purple, and especially in the mane too. I just think it turned out so beautiful. I was so happy with this one. I mean, I love all of these hand-painted ponies, but there was just something so just gorgeous about the colors that the customer said that she really liked, and I think that I ended up really loving this too. So there's that little spot near the eye that is like teal that fades out to the purple. That's probably one of my favorite little spots, and that little detail is something that I wouldn't be able to get with colored polymer clay unless I spent, you know, a lot of hours. You could get that, but I don't know. I'm a little old-fashioned, probably my traditional artist background. I love having these handmade, hand-painted. Sure, I could have airbrushed it, but, you know, I'm old-fashioned and traditional, and I like to do things the hard way, I guess, by hand with paintbrushes and all that stuff. Okay, so now here I am working on the last hand-painted sculpture. This one is the full rainbow Overo. I had never painted one in rainbow this big before, and something that I deliberately did with this sculpture was I went through all of my paints and I picked the ones that were the brightest because I really wanted this rainbow to stand out and just be eye-popping, gorgeous, unique, juicy, luscious colors, you know, all those adjectives. So I picked out the colors that were most beautiful to me. They also, however, ended up being very, very transparent. And so because I like to paint in layers, I think that creates a really jewel-like effect where you can like sort of see through each individual layer, especially when I'm painting on a white background, which I did end up doing with this sculpture. I didn't show you, but I ended up painting parts of this white so I could get some really super beautiful bright colors, because when you put the colors on top of the white, it brightens them up a lot. So I did end up doing that, which was another step that I didn't record. But because I chose those transparent colors for this one, I ended up layering this baby for so long. This one took me the longest by far, not only because there were so many different colors I had to fade together because, you know, rainbow, but also because of the colors I picked. I picked them because they were beautiful, but they ended up being pretty difficult to work on. So for the next rainbow pony that I do, you know, not anytime soon, maybe in a few years, I definitely need to make sure that the paints I choose are not quite so transparent, or just account for the fact that's going to take me a super duper long time. So at this point, I'm working on the tail. And something I also tried to keep in mind with this rainbow pony specifically was, where are the colors going to blend and fade? Like, what parts are going to be from pink, orange, yellow, green to blue, and then how am I going to have pink? Like, what's going to be up against pink if in the other direction it's going orange? So something that I did here was, if I started pink and I had a different edge, I would usually go blue, purple, because I just think those colors look really beautiful together. So it was a lot of planning, it was a lot of fun, and this is not something that you would easily get with an airbrush. All of it was done by hand, and you can see the edges are still, you know, the edges need some work, the layers need some more work, but it's coming along so well, and I was just so happy with it. And I love that fade from blue to green to blue, purple to pink to orange to yellow. Like, it's just stunning. Okay, so now here it is, all finished. And let me just tell you, I'm so proud of this little pony. I just adore it. I love the color fades. I love the color blends. I love how the red and orange really creates like this bright, almost fire effect. And then you have the pops of the green, blue to cool it down and to make it just that much better contrast. I think this is just such a fun pony. And also, I don't know if you can tell, but on the spots, this is based on an Overo Pinto pattern, which is a real pattern in a horse. That's something that I like to do with Tumble creatures. I want them to look, you know, very whimsical and fun and something you're not going to find in the real world, but I want them to also be kind of close to what an actual horse would be. So the edges of this Pinto pony's pattern are sort of rough, and you have the little bit slightly transparent edging, which is also something that you'll find in realistic horses, which I love that little detail. I think it is just really cool, and I think it really pushes it over the edge to something so unique and so special, and just something that, you know, this isn't the type of pony that I'm going to make every day. This isn't something that I'm going to make in my working hours. This is something that is really special, really unique, that I am just so proud of. And I did hear back from all of the customers who purchased these ponies, and they all really, really loved them. And that made me so happy because, you know, like I said, they definitely were a special item that I don't offer very often. And I did take a little bit of time with them. And they were so great to be so patient and wait for these tumbles. And I was just so thrilled to know that they loved them. So this little rainbow pony, I'm just so happy with it. I was happy with all of them. Every single one of them. I love the Buttermilk buckskin Appaloosa. I love the cool tone, the jewel tone, the teal, the blue, the purple. But, you know, rainbows have my heart forever and always. And that little green spot on the nose, I just adore it. I think it's so freaking cute. And yeah, these were so much fun. I loved making all of them. Thank you so much for watching this video, my friends. I'll see you in my next one.